Today I'm going to tell you the top 10 things wanted for Darktide. These picks were some of my own opinions, but also ones taken from Reddit and the forums. But other than that, let's get into number 10. Stealth. One of the games I've recently been having a lot of fun with is Get the Fuck Out. This 4-player co-op shooter is the peak of hardcore first-person shooters. The game has very scary mutated enemies in which you have to manage your resources to survive and do objectives. One thing this game does brilliantly though is the use of stealth mechanics. As you start out in the rundown, stealth is not too important, as in earlier levels there are less harder enemies and you have more resources. However, as you go deeper into the rundown, the game becomes more of a medieval torture device, where levels require 100% stealth and 0 fuck up, or you all die and have to restart. But this is what makes the game great. You slowly have to move through rooms, clearing them out with melee attacks to avoid setting off other enemies and causing a swarm to attack you, wasting resources. One downside with the game though is that it's not for casual players, and if you really want to chill and just have some fun in a game, this is not that. However, in Darktide, whilst I think this game should not require nearly as much stealth as GTFO, the game's setting could offer some great mechanics or missions involving you having to be stealthy. This could be a certain enemy type like poxwalkers that scream, letting others know that people are nearby, similar to the scout in GTFO, or a mission where you're overwhelmed with poxwalkers in a part of the underhive, and this results in the group having to use stealth to move through walking poxwalker groups to get back to the Valkyrie to get out. Or even if we get the bare minimum stealth, which is possibly a crouch button where we can sneak into areas or rooms and get the jump on enemies, I believe it would be nice to have stealth mechanics. However, as much as I'd love stealth in Darktide, it's unlikely that we will get it. First off, we never got any form of stealth in Vermintide, be that mechanics or mission types, but if we're going off the game type that Darktide and Vermintide is, it's similar to your Doom and Left 4 Dead experience, moving through rooms, killing enemies and waves to do objectives. Tying on from stealth, we have number 9, horror. From the trailer of Darktide, we are truly getting a sense of the Warhammer 40k universe with that juicy, grim, dark theme that we've all come to love. Being a 40k successor to Vermintide, which itself is not a horror game, and honestly neither should Darktide be, horror aspects of a game can truly immerse you in the world and give a lot of depth to gameplay, even if it's just the little things. Now, I don't want Darktide to have jump scares that your Let's Players get a kick out of. I'm more talking about mechanics in game that could give this game a more grim dark feeling with a hint of being scared. The 40k universe has some of the most disturbing races with lore that can truly give nightmares. I'm looking at you, Dark Eldar and Emperor's Children. One game to give an example of what I mean by this is Natural Selection 2. The game itself is not scary, but there are moments when the power gets destroyed and you are moving through a room with only a flashlight to see, hearing all of these aliens around you. This is something that could work brilliantly in Darktide if they added flashlights as a mechanic, similar to what we see in the trailer, where some areas in the level have no lighting and require you to need flashlights to see. We did have a mission like this in Vermintide 2 called Hunger in the Dark, requiring a torch to see and push a minecart. Having stuff like this would definitely add to the horror atmosphere of the game. Don't get me wrong, I don't want another game like GTFO where having the light on is a matter of life and death. More your Deep Rock Galactic team playstyle where having one person be the main light manager, giving a sense of teamwork. Basically Left 4 Dead with the Vermintide dismemberment mechanics, but also moments where you can breathe and see the environment for what it is, the true grimdark horror that is Warhammer 40k. Vermintide has beautiful environments, but I never felt like I had the moment to step back and look at them, like the Dwarven Mines or the farm fields, to appreciate the work that went into them. Every mission did feel, as people have been saying, like a race to the end, to finish it as fast as possible, which I understand if you've played it a few times, but it felt like that from the start. Another example of horror and just giving people a breather they could add is seeing an individual turn into a poxwalker. If you've ever read Dark Imperium, it describes this great with horns sprouting and tentacles mutating on the body, and lastly a big smiling grin. Just imagine you're walking through a level and you see a guardsman in the corner half dead, which then looks up at you and starts uncontrollably laughing, and then suddenly begins to mutate with skin starting to decay, and in the name of the Emperor you have to shoot them mid-mutation. I just want things in Darktide that do make you feel scared, and that make this world feel more organic and not just set in one path. Moving on to number 8, we have more characters. Whilst we all love the Vermintide 5, we all saw the potential of characters that could have been added to that group. Lizardmen, Greenskins, Betonia, High Elves. I mean, I know some of those during the end times were on the back foot, to put simply, and were dealing with their own chaos and Skaven invasions, but still, for gameplay wise, it could have been really fun. I mean, even if we had variations of the characters we got that allowed for more than one player to be a dwarf or Empire soldier, it would have been really fun to have a whole party of Slayers to play in Vermintide. Also, this would have been one of the best ways for Vermintide to make money. Without a doubt, playing characters with backstories, abilities, weapons, skill trees and traits is one of the most interesting and best parts of Vermintide, and if they made new characters, they would most likely sell well also. Most games these days do this sort of thing, like Rainbow Six Siege with their operatives or Marvel Avengers with their heroes. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand the game industry. It's not fucking cheap to make new heroes. The amount of work that goes into creating one character, you can't even imagine the time it takes. But at the same time, it is worth doing sometimes. I think this is one of those things that is really holding Vermintide by the bollocks of being even more successful. Expanding on their rosters of characters would easily do well for them, but I can also understand the whole IP and buying the rights as a problem. Hence why with Vermintide 2 they went with the career sort of tree, which allowed them to expand on the existing characters without nearly as needing much time or resources to make a new character. In an interview in 2018, a question was asked if we will ever see more characters for Vermintide, and the dev's response was, the problem is you need to find somebody that really fits well into their party. They're a picky bunch, it's a great undertaking. You need to get all their voice lines, how they react with each other. There's quite a few of them. There are a lot of gameplay mechanics that needs to be right, and talent trees and stuff like that. So we'll see what we can do with that. I don't want to promise anything. It's a very fair response, as all that costs money and time, and I imagine it would take multiple months to create a character compared to the other maps and DLC they've been putting out a lot faster. But Darktide's another IP, another genre, another game. With the backing of Xbox and Microsoft being an exclusive, I'm praying that this game will have more of a budget when compared to Vermintide. We all have seen our 4 characters in the artwork. We still have not been shown a 5th, but will hopefully be teased at some point before launch. But the possibility for Darktide's playable characters are endless. Of course, I understand we have the problem of the Penal Legion, being that these are likely criminals, and adding other races into that group might be problematic lore-wise, but I've seen people all over the forums and Reddits give suggestions of what they would love to see as characters. Some are beautiful that I do hope we see in game at some point, others are outright heresy that would not do well in a melee combat focused game.
Holy Emperor, what is that foul beast?
Honestly, I'm down for Tau or any race to be added, even if it's not completely fitting lore-wise. The 40k universe has some of the most unique and diverse races with so much lore into each one that they could add characters for years to come. I mean, I've seen people wanting Eldar, Tau, Adeptus Mechanicus, even Squats, and many more. I mean, look at Blackstone Fortress for reference of what a group of allies can look like involving Xenos and Abhumans working together. Overall, I think Fatshark would be missing out if they did not at least expand a little on their characters for Darktide once released for post-launch content. But you have to let me know in the comments, would new characters pique your interest, or are you happy with the way they're handling their DLC at the moment? Talking about adding more something to the game, we have number 7, enemies. In my last video, I talked about all of the enemies that I believe could be making an appearance in Darktide. If you want to see my perspective on that, I recommend you go watch that video to save me explaining stuff. Regardless though, one point that was made very clear is that people were not overall happy with Death Guard and Noble Demons as the main enemy focus for the game, if that's true. This is because Warhammer 40k has possibly some of the best, creative looking races when it comes to sci-fi fantasy. The amount of distinct races that could be added to this game in future as enemies could be amazing. But whilst I'm not going to focus on any particular race as that's favoritism, I'm more going to focus on the idea that with Darktide, Fatshark could explore races for enemies that rarely see the light of day in your Warhammer 40k games. Obviously, Demons of Slaanesh and Tzeentch have really been given any love in big Warhammer 40k games, same with Tyranids and Genestealers and of course Necrons. They are represented here and there in old Dawn of War games, Chaosbane, Space Hulk and Battlefleet Gothic, but I'm talking about truly fleshed out models made with the technology we have today. This once again comes back to my other point I made in the video about DLC. Obviously, Fatshark have to choose where to focus their resources, either on new enemies or things like new characters. Unlikely they would do both, or at least not at the same time. Well, if DLC is a problem, let the community do it. Which brings me on to number 6, Map Creator. One of the things Vermintide is known for is its large amount of mods to choose from the Steam Workshop. These can be all sorts of things, from skipping the intro on startup, changing some of the effects in game or adding damage numbers, or my personal favourite, Sticky Grim, as I'm one of those people to accidentally throw away a grimoire and then get flamed for it. But Fat Shark have done a good job of acknowledging some of the mods the community has been making, even though they probably should have been doing it themselves. They give some mods approval to be in the official realm, unlike the modded realm where anything goes. However, one post I've seen recently is that someone requested on the forums a map editor, being able to create and edit their own maps. With games like Super Mario Maker, Dreams, and tools like the Steam Workshop, developers are catching on that people can almost add infinite content to their game without even the devs needing to lift a finger, keeping people coming back and playing. With a map editor in Vermintide and Darktide, players could create their own selection of missions with boss encounters and different placement of game objects like building assets and also grimoire locations, making an experience that is different to the normal line of mission chain that we're so used to. Especially for a game like Vermintide with a huge mod community, it would be nice for players to have more freedom to create their own stories in game. However, this is very unlikely. The post I was looking at that suggested this, another chap was making the point that a map editor / creator depends on the engine, saying that since the game runs on a improved Stingray engine, which Fat Shark have been using for Verm 1 and Verm 2, which they have improved on, however Autodesk discontinued the engine. Furthermore, they apparently made a documentary on the hardship of importing 3D models into Vermintide 2, and those problems would be the same for a map editor as the engine is not made for it. On to number 5, we have PS5 and crossplay. I don't think I was the only one who was surprised when Darktide was shown off that it was an Xbox exclusive. And I can tell you, as soon as I saw the trailer, my heart went out to all those PlayStation players. Even though I'm PC Master Race, I would honestly be so disappointed if I had to buy an Xbox just to play this. Hence why I'm obviously so glad it's on PC as well, but this is why I'm mentioning PlayStation in this list, out of respect that if I was a PlayStation player, I would hope someone would do the same. Hopefully Darktide will come to PlayStation at some point. Also, another point to mention in this is crossplay. A game like Darktide, which has no PvP, well at least not yet, is a great game to allow for cross-platform play. This might be something Xbox and Microsoft are looking into, since games like Sea of Thieves have been using it for a while now and being a great success. And of course it will improve search times with the player base being higher, and of course allows you to play with your friends on different platforms. What good is letting people play on more platforms without good connection? Which brings me on to number 4. Dedicated servers. This is possibly so important and really badly needed for Darktide. I've seen entire games die at launch simply because they try to save money in areas in which they feel they can. A perfect example of this is For Honor. When For Honor launched without dedicated servers, the amount of host migration really killed it for me, and I never played it again after the first few weeks because I simply couldn't. I will say, from all the hours I've played Vermintide 1 and 2, lag and desync have never been a problem. Never. We also have to remember that Vermintide does not really require fast reaction time like a PvP game, which is a positive. However, obviously I can't speak for everyone on this, and I imagine some people would disagree. But by far the biggest problem I've had with the servers on Vermintide is when the host leaves halfway through a level because of raging, or my friend's internet disconnects and I get taken back to Tao's Keep. It really pisses me off. Of course you can host your own lobby to ensure this does not happen, but that means less and less people will be searching online, leading to longer matchmaking. Of course I understand that dedicated servers are expensive to get in every region, but I feel one thing that Fat Shark could do is just be more honest with us and not get our hopes up. They did this with Vermintide, promising dedicated servers in a roadmap, which we never got, hence why they scrapped the roadmap, which I can respect. In their Darktide Q&A they do mention dedicated servers, but never really give an answer. I mean, I love this comment here. Dedicated servers, skillfully dodged. It's brilliant, absolutely love that. It does make you wonder though, I mean, if they had dedicated servers, wouldn't they put that up on a pedestal and let people know right from the start instead of just sort of hiding it? I mean, all I'm going to say is, don't get your hopes up. On to number 3, we have something that every great looter game needs, an interesting hub. Vermintide 2 had its hub in Tao's Keep, and Vermintide 1 had you in the Red Moon Inn. Personally, I felt the Red Moon Inn was better, being more compact with greater detail on objects, and by far what won it for me was the bar fighting. Drinking a pint and then pissing about with your mates was definitely fun, and a great thing to do in between missions or waiting on people to join. Vermintide 2 does have the parkour, but other than that I was not a fan of the large open areas, and it seems to lose its charm of what made a good hub. B-Man10 on the forums describes this great, with the Red Moon Inn having trophies after completing missions or DLC like the banners, the Grey Seer Mantle, and and the Vampire Blood Cup. Of course, Vermintide 2 you do get great paintings and banners as well, also the dummies to test your weapon on, but I always felt like something was missing. A game that does this beautifully is Deep Rock Galactic, having special beers that do interesting mechanics when playing the game, dancing on the dance floor or playing the bin hoop game, and having places as dedicated trophy rooms than just all over the place as random is really nice. Lastly, having a few hidden achievements like knocking the barrels into the launch bay or pressing the gravity button really makes it a great hub to hang out. For Darktide, I hope we get a nice balance of what made both great. A trophy room showing all the achievements we've gotten in game that are more than just banners, crafting areas, things we can do whilst waiting for players to join like parkour, bar fighting. It would be really cool if they had like a little Warhammer tabletop mini game that you could play whilst waiting. Obviously a shooting range for testing weapons and damage, but at the same time not making you have to go really far to interact with each. For example, I was thinking of a Valkyrie at first, but that's too small, so perhaps a Thunderhawk instead. If anyone has any suggestions for what could be improved or added for a hub in Darktide, I would love to know your thoughts. Number 2, we have sync kills. Warhammer 40k games and fantasy, whilst having the Warhammer name to them, have one thing that really sets them apart from other games: sync kills. They truly show the harsh reality of blood and gore that is Warhammer, and they truly make the games feel alive. To be fair to Vermintide, they already have got great body dismemberment, cutting off enemies' heads, tails, etc. And with games like Doom leading the way with sync kills, it would be great to have something similar like that in Darktide. This could be where you damage an enemy enough to get an execution prompt, which gives you 10 health in return, or just a pleasing aesthetics. Of course, I understand it might not be fluid, and making executions for every enemy would be a huge job for every character. Perhaps instead they could make it so executions are only for boss finishers, or if that's too much again, at the very least add body dismemberment to larger bosses. There have been so many times when I've been fighting a rat ogre or a chaos spawn in Vermintide that I wish chunks of meat or parts of the model would get cut off, just to give me that little bit more realism. Before I get to number 1, I just want to have some honourable mentions, as there are many things I could have put in this list but chose not to. These are things such as third person mode, which we had mods for in Vermintide, character customization with emotes and more exciting skins, a versus mode for Darktide, but anyway, number 1, more involving and exciting missions. Missions in Vermintide 2 weren't bad. Some were better than others, but for Darktide I really pray that Fat Shark can step up their game. I was looking over at some of the forum posts of what people wanted for missions, and some people had great suggestions. One person made the idea of a map like in Vermintide that showed us where the Poxwalkers are, or which territories are controlled by gangs in the Underhive. Someone else mentioned that whilst Grims were good for some missions, they should not be the staple of every mission to get better rewards, and it's not friendly for new players also, as there are loads of other ideas you could come up with that I think could be better. The same person suggests missions that involve fixing a generator that perhaps could turn out the lights, having you fight in the dark whilst you have to wait and repair it. Perhaps in the dark you have to go retrieve power cells to power it back up. Another idea is that you know a heretic is about to go full demon and you have to intervene or defeat the demon. I would love missions as well where it's a 2-2 split, where each side has to do individual tasks to help the other side, preventing the rush to the end style of gameplay. Or how about an escort mission where you find somebody in the hive of importance that you have to guide out of the mission safely. Talking about missions, it would be great to be able to interact with the world a bit more. One thing I liked about Deathwing Space Hulk is that you could actually close and lock doors, forcing the enemy to find another route, giving you time to breathe. Or how about areas where you could set traps preparing for a wave encounter in missions? Or just in general, I hope we get ways to interact with basic things in the world that tell us a little bit of the lore about the situation we're in, with the use of Vox audio or other things. Lastly, on missions, I think it would be nice if they weren't all the same type, with, the sort of here's the start, go through the map to the finish to fight the boss. I would love a mission where you stay in one spot for the entire time, surviving waves of incoming enemies, similar to what GTF do with some of their missions. And obviously, I know it's a bit cliche, but how about raids? I mean, imagine if you had to go deeper into the Underhive to retrieve a mission objective, an absolute giant map it would be with multiple puzzles, secret areas, multiple objectives as well, Easter eggs, and that would just take under an hour to complete. I mean, I know Destiny is not everyone's cup of tea, but I won't lie, the raids were truly amazing to take in. Of course, this would be an endgame sort of content thing, but they could add raids as further DLC down the line, going into Genestealer nests or other things. I would definitely love to know what missions people would like to see in the comments. Anyway, it's been your boy Poncha. Thank you very much for watching. I mean, let me know if you agree or disagree with my top 10 list. I always love hearing what people may want in Darktide. Anyway, cheers for watching.